All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here for our 2018 Global Citizenship Conference Melton Share. And it's with deep pride and great pleasure that I'm introducing you all. Some of you know him already, and some of you are just recently being introduced to Senior Fellow Raphael Richard, who has graciously decided that he is going to embark on us the kind of knowledge and preparation skills for you all to consider as you're going to the Net Impact 2018 conference that is also being incorporated into this year's GCC. So I'm going to let him speak for himself, and you all should really take heed to the things that he's saying and try to apply them before the GCC even happens. So we're talking about networking, we're talking about how to make the most out of this conference, and some of these things you may be able to practice before you even arrive to the GCC. So without further ado, here is my good friend and senior fellow, Raphael Richard.
Thank you so much, Lafayette. Thank you all for having me this morning or at night for some of you all. So thanks for waking up early or staying up late in some cases to participate in this session. So I really want to take the time to talk about just really how to navigate a large conference and how to properly network at these conferences and things that you can really think about as a college student to make the most of net impact. And the reason we titled this session outside the lines, that's actually the theme for the Net Impact Conference this year. So thinking outside the lines. So this will be an interactive presentation. So there'll be points where I will ask some of you to unmute yourselves to talk and participate. So be sure that you're ready and active. I can see everyone's name who's on the session. So if no one's participating, I may just have a Lafayette call on a few people. So it'd be great if you all could go ahead and volunteer so that we don't have to call on anyone. So with that getting started, we will get started with the presentation.
If you don't mind me jumping in, so Ralph is unable to see all of you in the video sphere, so we'll be utilizing the chat. So if you would like to participate or raise your hand, please do so in the chat window so I can monitor it and I can let Ralph know that you have a question or you'd like to contribute. So thank you.
Great. So this is a little bit of what we're going to review today. So first, I want to talk a little bit more about me and why it's relevant that I really do this session, because there could have been plenty of people also who've done it, but my work currently relates to that. So we'll review a little bit about what I do. We'll talk more specifically about the Net Impact Conference and its goals. We'll think about networking and an elevator pitch. We'll talk a little bit more about what that all means. Preparation for conference sessions. We'll go over just really how to prepare for the sessions that are going to be offered during Net Impact, as well as preparation for the expo that will happen at the session. And then you can feel free to ask me any questions you may have, and then hopefully I can provide some answers. All right, so a little bit more about me. So I help college students thrive in their career journeys. That's my full-time job right now. I work for an organization called the T. Howard Foundation, and we help mostly minority students in the U.S. or underserved communities access internships and jobs with major media companies. So I work with companies like Facebook, Amazon, Paramount Pictures and Hollywood, HBO, which is another firm here, the New York Times, even some publication companies and PR firms. Sports agencies like ESPN. I work with over 42 companies, and I help students get jobs with those organizations. So I really coach the students, advise them, and also work with the companies to best help prepare students for what they can gain with their companies. So I have 9 years of college student advising and coaching. I've worked at 3 universities before I moved into this recruiting type of work. Again, I recruit and train top talent for internships in media and tech. And my focus within those 9 years of college student advising has always been diversity and inclusion. So I've always worked in a multicultural affairs center or international center on U.S. college campuses and working with college students. So a little bit more about Net Impact. So Net Impact, as you all can read, brings current and aspiring leaders together for a dynamic exchange of ideas about how we can work together and tackle our toughest social and environmental problems. Today's challenges are more complex than any one person or organization can solve, requiring us to collaborate on innovative solutions And as you can see, I've highlighted some things that I think are really going to be important for y'all to remember through net impact. I think that how we work together and tackling social and environmental problems and also collaborating on environmental solutions are really important things to consider when going into these sessions. How are you going to collaborate? How are you really going to meet these goals that net impact has put before you? So a little bit more about the session. Again, as I mentioned, this year's theme is Outside the Lines. So we'll explore transformational change that defy traditional expectations and diving deep into new trends and practices that challenge conventional wisdom, break barriers, and enable us to change the world. So very similar to the things that you all are already doing in your junior fellow experience. Hopefully this will expand that and you can use some of those skills that you've learned as a JF at the conference. So again, some of the conference features will give you the skills, experiences, and connections so that you can have the greatest impact now and throughout your career. And that's another aspect of what we're going to focus on a lot in this presentation is the career aspect of what this of what net impact will offer. So they're not only offering this learning opportunity, but an opportunity for you to think about your career. What's going to be your next step post graduation from your current institutions. So now that we shared a little bit more about net impact, what it is, and hopefully you all have already been to the website to learn more, but I really want to hear from a few of you all and what you hope to learn and get out of the Net Impact Conference and GCC this year. So you can just use the comment section or raise hand feature, and a lot of you will call on some folks to share.
If you already have video on, you can also raise your hand so I can see you. All right, would anyone like to contribute? I'm going to choose one person at random, whoever is the seventh person that I see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ranjani? So what do you hope to get out of Net Impact this year?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So since this time we are collaborating with the Net Impact, we'll be meeting a lot of people from various different backgrounds who've achieved a lot in their field and who come with a different educational background as well as that bring a lot of experience to different domains. And I was just going through all the different speakers and attendees there, and it ranged from Cisco to Ecolab, and there's like a lot of diverse range of domains that's covered during the conference. So I hope to network with as many people as possible and sort of understand their passion and how they got into doing what they are right now, and how I can sort of collaborate and learn more from their experiences, also share my experience. So I'm just hoping to network and learn from all of them, all of their different experiences. That's basically the aim.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We also have a message from Sanchita in the chat. She says, I'm looking forward to learn stories of how people in the corporate sector make projects that create substantial impact in the communities they are a part of at a local level.
Great.
All right.
Get 2 more people to share. That would be great.
So we have a few lead fellows on the call. So Vali, if you could be one of those contributors, and let's see who else is here. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. Haizo?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm hoping to learn from the Net Impact Conference this year is mostly knowing the trend or the most focused area that the top-notch technicians or people from different domains are focusing on. And I really want to know from their views what is the most urgent or most needed problem that we need to tackle in the future. And I also want to connect those topics to my future career to find out which domain I could, put my efforts on in the future.
Great, thank you so much.
And then next it would be Vale.
Hi. I think for me, the netting punk is a really great opportunity to connect with another people outside from the Melton Foundation, see how uh, they are developing projects and getting a different perspective of the challenges that we're facing.
Very true.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So I heard a lot about like collaboration, corporate sector, making impact, connecting with people. Those are all good. So one thing I want to challenge you all to do is really think of like why you are attending. We know you're attending because it's a requirement for the Melton Foundation, but why else you're attending? What do you hope to learn? Those things are really important to know going into it, and they'll help you navigate the conference a lot more effectively. So we'll go over a few more ideas that hopefully prompt your thinking on what you hope to learn, and hopefully you can develop that. So what we'll focus on right now and throughout this presentation are the two main attendee focus areas, and that would be the actual conference sessions. Those are sessions that you attend. They're usually about 40 minutes to an hour, bearing different topics. They're going to be 40 sessions at Net Impact this year. And then we're also going to focus on the expo. That's more like a career fair, an organizational fair where you can learn more about job opportunities with certain organizations, or how to even volunteer and work with other NGO organizations. So really focus on those two things for the purpose of this presentation. And so to do that, first we'll talk about an elevator pitch and networking. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see the activities would be the sessions and the expo. And the skills that I think you all will need to learn and know for both of these will be first an elevator pitch, and then secondly, networking. So before I talk about elevator pitch first, does anyone know what an elevator pitch is, or can share more about what they learned about an elevator pitch?
As far as I know, an elevator pitch is like a very short 1 minute, very high level pitch of what it is that you're doing. I guess it comes from having one elevator ride to convince someone to invest in you, or, be convinced by what it is that you do.
Yeah, so that's spot on. So it's really at the end of the day, again, a short description, idea, a product, company, or in your case, hopefully of yourself, that explains the concepts in a way that the listener can understand in a very short period of time, usually 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So the reason they call it an elevator pitch is because that's the time you'd be on an elevator. Like if you had a 30-second elevator ride, how can you pitch an idea you had? How can you pitch your company? How can you pitch the Melton Foundation? Or how can you pitch yourself? So really, my introductory slide was sort of like my elevator pitch. How I started off with the main point, that main point being I help college students thrive in their career journeys, like something to really grab the reader's attention, or the listener's attention rather, to let them know and that you're interested in either their idea or concept or their company. So that's really what an elevator pitch is. Again, in 30 seconds to 2 minutes, your elevator pitch should answer the following questions. Who am I? What do I offer? What problem is solved? What are the main contributions I can make or my organization can make? And what should the listener do as a result of hearing this? So at the end of the presentation, I'm gonna plug in some resources in the comments section. One is more specifically about how to navigate and write your elevator pitch. I think it'll be really important. Just in the interest of time, we're not gonna go to too much detail about how to write that, but I would, again, like at least 1 to 2 people, if you already sort of have an elevator pitch, you know what it is and want to give it a try, and based on the following question, just answering, what is the Melton Foundation? What's your elevator pitch when someone at the Net Impact is going to ask you, what is the Melton Foundation? So I'd like for at least one person to go ahead and give that a shot for all of us. I know you all can do this. 30 seconds to tell me what the Melton Foundation is. And in that, you're answering what the Melton Foundation does, what we offer, what problems we solve, and what are the contributions that we can make to other organizations we want to collaborate with. And then also, what should the listener do after hearing this? Should we invite them to go to their website? Should you invite them to our booth at the expo? Should you invite to connect with them on social media? That's sort of how you're going to lead in and talk about an organization. So who in 30 seconds can tell me what Melton is, what we offer, what problems we solve, what contributions we make, and then what should the listener do after we tell them who we are?
I know you all are thinking, and really there is no particular right way to do this. As you're trying, this is a space where you can just take a shot and see what happens. So just feel confident that you're not being judged or anything like that, and that it's an opportunity for you to practice. And then we have Ralph here, who is a professional at this, that is giving you some insight as to how to do this well. Okay. Do we have anyone who wants to take a stab at it? If not, then I'll be calling on someone who hasn't contributed yet. And it looks like we have someone new here. Kwabena, go ahead and take a shot and see what you can come up with. Kwabena, can you hear us?
I'll tell you what, Lafi, we'll have some time at the end too to go over it. So just keep in mind, and again, I'll provide an additional resource for you all that will go into more detail about how to develop this step by step and write it down. But even without doing that, it should be relatively easy, particularly in knowing what the Melton Foundation is, because people are going to ask and you're going to want to explain that. So that's definitely one important thing to really think about. So again, networking. Networking is a process that really fosters an exchange of information, individuals, group that share in common interests. It could be for business or social. So that's another thing to consider in going into each workshop or networking activity, which we'll go over next. What are type of relationships you want to gain out of these? Do you want to gain friendships in them? Do you want to gain a job? Do you want to gain a network? Do you want to collaborate on a project? So think about that as you network. So it can be through, again, a series of ties and compact. From meeting you all, or most of you all at GCC, you all are already really good networkers, in my opinion. I know this will look very differently when you're at a conference with about, I think about 2,000 people are expected. It may look a little bit differently. But again, I'm going to provide another resource. This article at the bottom from the Harvard Business Review, Learn to Love Networking, I thought is really, really effective. So I'll share that resource with you all. But here are the networking opportunities at Net Impact that I wanted you all to be familiar with. And feel free to ask questions about how you can navigate each one, either now or at the end. So with coffee breaks, reception, and block parties, so these will be informal venues to meet and mingle with fellow attendees. So again, a good way to go up to introduce yourself could be someone else who is standing alone and you're not talking to anyone. Just go up, introduce yourself, start a conversation. If it's a group having a conversation, think about most groups are standing in a circle. If it is a closed circle, maybe try not to budge your way in there. But if it's an open circle that they're talking and it looks inviting, walk and introduce yourself or pick up on a topic that they're engaging with. And begin to talk about that topic, but still introduce yourself. So if they're talking about whatever organizations they're a part of, just be like, oh, cool, that's great that you're a part of, the business club at your institution. I was once a business major and now I changed my major to science, and I'm here representing the Melton Foundation, and my name is such and such. So really keep it casual, particularly at this conference. some of the networking will be a little bit more informal. So keep it casual in the coffee break receptions and block party type. The networking at the expo will be a little bit more formal depending on the organization. So that's where you do that. They're also going to have networking salons. So this is an opportunity where everyone is there for the purpose of networking. So please visit those and practice. The Birds of a Feather lunches I thought were cool. They're going to be facilitated discussions by other conference attendees who are going to attend this and facilitate different stories and ideas on various topics. And if you all go to the Net Impact website and you're interested in facilitating one of these Birds of a Feather conversations, you can also sign up to be a facilitator for one of these conversations, pending that it doesn't, the timeline doesn't meet any other GCC requirements. But they may be a good opportunity for you all to meet people in a very informal way, but also have it being topic-based. If you're nervous about just walking into a coffee break or networking salon and kind of generally networking, these lunches might be a better opportunity because they're going to be topical and focused on one specific idea or concept that you can go and share your ideas about. Again, the civic dinners are, again, going to be semi-structured discussions where you'll just be having conversations. And then they'll also have a networking patio, which will be an outdoor space where you can go in and interact. And it talks about exchanging business cards. We'll talk about that a little bit more further in the presentation. But networking is going to be really important, and having your elevator pitch ready for networking is going to be a vital piece of how you meet people, and also just having some conversation starters. And if y'all have questions about conversation starters, I have a list of like 30 conversation starters that I'll also include in the resources that I share that will be helpful for you to know how to come in and start a conversation. And even some of the toughest things about networking can be exiting a conversation. What if you go and talk to someone and they don't, it's not necessarily connecting well, or you are, there's not going to be a business purpose. You came there to get a job and they're in a totally different field. How do you begin to exit the conversation? How can you still make use of that? So really think about the one I always use is, excuse me, I'm going to go and grab a drink. And then I'll go and proceed and grab some coffee and then venture off to have another conversation. But there's some other ways, and feel free to ask questions about those. And I'll, again, also provide some additional resources. But any questions about the elevator pitch or networking?
I don't see any in the chat.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. So really preparing for conference sessions, the first thing I'm gonna encourage is for everyone to go to this website when you have an opportunity. It's not hyperlinked, so if you click it, it won't work, but, and look at the full agenda. Go ahead and begin to look at the full agenda of the conference and seeing what's offered, and that will be the link to that. So the first thing in terms of preparing for conference sessions, you wanna be able to select your actual session. So when you go through, again, the website, this link, and look at the full agenda, print it out and highlight sessions that are just simply that are interesting to you and relevant to your student activities or your career interests. So that'd be the first things. Grab a highlighter and just start highlighting. Secondly, I would encourage, maybe in a different color or underline, highlight sessions that you think are relevant to the mission of the Melton Foundation. So your purpose of going to GCC and being there is to participate with this organization. So what sessions do you think are relevant to being a junior fellow? Also highlight those. And lastly, highlight sessions you want to learn more about. So there's things that you think kind of just spark your interest, but you're not too familiar with, and you want to learn more about it. Highlight those, and hopefully you'll be able to attend some of these as well. So after you sort of thought about selecting your sessions, when you're actually at the sessions, be prepared to chat about why you're attending this particular session and how is it relevant to you. I know as a presenter, that's one of the things I always ask when I'm at conference sessions, is sort of asking the audience, why are you here? Because that helps me as a facilitator be able to, even though we have prepared presentations, it allows them to be able to tailor some of the messages that they can offer to you in their area of expertise. So really know why you're attending a particular session, even if it's just to learn more. Just simply say that, I am here, I am unfamiliar with what you do, sir or ma'am, and I am here to learn more about this. But if you are familiar, also share that and talk about more of the specific information you may want to learn. Next, so you're going to be sitting near folks. So before the session, after the session, introduce yourself and use your elevator pitch. That's a great networking opportunity without actually going to one of the networking events. So if you're just sitting near folks and it's 5 minutes before the session offers, introduce yourself. Just chat with them, find out why they're there, why they are there as well, and sort of what they do. Again, have some business cards ready. If you don't, business cards are okay. I know also technology is there. So I would say business cards or contact information, or also just simply LinkedIn. I have the LinkedIn app on my phone where sometimes I'm at conferences and I meet students in particular. And I don't give out my business card a whole lot because I don't want a whole lot of emails. So that's another thing to think about. The more you give folks your emails, the more you're going to get emails. So I always, particularly in working with students, offer them to connect with me on LinkedIn because they may send a message there, or I may be able to post updates to keep them engaged. So I think that's really important too, particularly if you're posting, if you're going to be engaging in content on LinkedIn or other spaces in social media. So for some of you, it might be Twitter. So feel free to share your Twitter information, any other thing, but make sure that you have some way for folks to keep in contact with you to exchange information. My recommendation would be business cards, but if that's not feasible for you, have the LinkedIn app ready on your phone or some way to contact other folks. Any questions about that? All right. Also, Alafia has recommended 2 sessions for everyone. One of those is how to maximize your impact through leadership with Echoing Green. Winthrop and I went to a convening at the United Nations a few years ago, and we met some folks over at Echoing Green. It's a really great organization, and if you're particularly thinking about social entrepreneurship or starting an NGO, I think Echoing Green is a great organization to be connected with. So even if you're not interested in maximizing your impact through leadership, I think you all should be interested in Echoing Green as an organization. So I would highly recommend that session as well. And then impact models, the many frameworks of change with the B Lab, the folks at Vanderbilt University. Again, a session that will really help you understand how leadership change works and how change impacts organizations. So we're recommending those 2 sessions, but again, take a look. I'm not sure if the full conference session is open yet, all of the sessions, but when it opens, please take a look at all of those sessions and really go through it. Do your research beforehand on what you like to attend. Any questions? All right. So preparing for the expo. Again, this is going to be a huge space with several employers there, several organizations there, all sharing information about what they do. And it can seem a little intimidating walking in. So I'll let you share a few tips with you all. And then if I covered a tip that you already know, you want to know some more about, ask me, because part of my job is I travel throughout the country as an exhibitor, a lot of these expos. So I see thousands of people weekly coming to these things. So there's some tips in here that I may have forgotten to place. So please feel free to ask me any questions you have about attending an expo or even some of the conference sessions at the end, because we will have a good amount of time for questions. So expo, again, before you arrive, it's really important to research the companies and organizations attending the expo. Research is so important. I think one of the things, and that's why companies list these ahead of time. Even after I had posted this on the slide, I went to the Net Impact website, and this was also one of their recommendations, to research the companies and organizations. Because as an employer, I want to know that you've at least done enough research to know what we do, or what field we're in, or what type of jobs that we offer. That's really important, and that sets you apart from any other candidates, particularly if you're looking for a job. So please, please, please research the companies that are going to be there, find out if they interest you, and learn a little bit more about them. And again, select the ones that interest you the most. Next, I would suggest working on your resume or curriculum vitae. Be sure that the Melton Foundation Junior Fellowship is listed on your resume. I have an example of my senior fellow resume that I'll share with you all to kind of highlight some ideas that, well, it may highlight some ideas for you and be able to place Melton on your resume. And also prepare a few questions to have for employers and organizations about what they do. So even though you've done your research, well, in doing your research, you should have some questions to ask. Maybe you want to know more about a particular field, or how you can get more connected with a particular department and an agency, or you saw something on their social media posts that you want to know more about, how they engage their employers. Just have a few questions to ask to keep them engaged. So these are all things that you should be doing before you even arrive to Phoenix for GCC. All right. And then also before you arrive in preparing your resume for the expo. So here's mine. This is actually my real resume that I'm currently using. And I actually have Melton listed as part of my professional experience. So it's listed as if it were a job. And again, my area of expertise is working with college students and also recruiting. So the work that I've done in Melton that specifically speaks to that is what I have listed. So I make sure that your content is relevant. But for you all, it could be a little simple. So you can see I still have the junior fellowship on there. So I've completed intensive global systems training through online and in-person projects with college students based in Chile, China, Germany, and India. Kept it very simple, very succinct. That could be really enough for your involvement. But some of you are doing a lot more, particularly if you're a lead fellow. I definitely highlight some of the things that you have to do weekly and monthly, and really bullet and make it thorough, but not too long. So as you can see, as a member of the global selection team, I have what I do there: review and update application materials, evaluate applications, and virtually attend campus interviews. So making sure that, as a recruiter, that employer knows that's what I do. Also, I was a former mentor for the Junior Fellows Program. So mentor Junior Fellowship development and execution of program deliverables based on solving a global issue. So it's really very detailed in sort of what I did, how I did it, who I worked with in doing that. Represent the foundation at national and international convenings related to education and global citizenship. Again, keeping it all relevant, that I go to these convenings and working with several people. And then a little bit more about developing facilitated curriculum-based conversations to help aid participants make connections between sessions during the 2017 Global Citizenship Conference. Another good thing, I didn't do as much here, but it'd be really relevant to you all, is to quantify as much as you can. So highlighting that Melton, you work with 5 different students from 5 different countries, that you participate in these annual convenings with over 80 participants. Those are all things that you may want to highlight as you talk about your experiences with Melton. So again, if you worked on particular projects, travels with the foundation, attended other workshops and seminars because of Melton, make sure that is highlighted. I think Melton is a depth of experience that can be placed on your resume that can help you in your career, because it definitely helped me in my career. And again, if you have questions about how to navigate that on your CV or resume, we can talk a little bit more about that at the end. So again, while you're at the expo, so you've already highlighted all the sessions you're interested in or want to get employed with. So actually visit their booth. Don't just highlight it, go to their booth and talk to them. And again, use your elevator pitch for introducing yourself. A lot of times at these expos, students will come to me and they'll say, tell me more about your organization. And I'll go back to them and say, well, tell me more about you first. And that's, again, so if I learn more about you, I can then tailor what I know about my organization to you and find out if it's relevant, if it's not. So be ready to introduce yourself with your elevator pitch, and not necessarily go and just begin to immediately ask questions about the organization. Some of them may start with their elevator pitch first, which is usually fine, but you respond back with more about you instead of responding back directly with questions, or just ask the questions towards the end of your elevator pitch to keep them engaged. Social media is going to be also really big at these huge convenings. So stay engaged with the conference on social media, including LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn is going to be your best friend in working with some of these convenings. By using the conference hashtag, especially net impact, hashtag net impact and hashtag NI18. And some people will probably use Net Impact 18, so I would add that too. But those are you can search people at the conference. So I would search that. Many of the facilitators and presenters are going to be using the hashtags to talk about their sessions, so that's a good way to engage them. If you're at their session or went to their session, also tag them in your post about their session. So if you're typing notes on Twitter or on Facebook or LinkedIn, tag the presenters, use the hashtag. That's a good way for other people to find out more about you as well. So really, really use those hashtags. Believe me, I've developed some great friendships and professional relationships simply based off of hashtags at conferences. Lastly, have your resume and CV readily available as some employers might ask for them. Some of these employers are gonna be pre-screening. Basically, the whole purpose of an expo from the employer standpoint is to pre-screen some of the talent that's going to be coming through. So they may ask for your resume, and they may be ready to make decisions right then and there. They may have a yes and a no pile for folks to follow up with when you're there. So just be sure that if you're carrying a backpack or folder or binder, just have it readily available. So if they ask for it, you don't have to dig too much for it. So I recommend just having a small portfolio or binder with you to keep your resume in, to walk around with while you're at the expo, so that can be easily accessible in case some of the employers do ask for it. Also, while you're there, and realizing that most of you are not US based, and a lot of the companies are going to be US based, even though they may have international opportunities or international offices. You may want to ask them, and I told you to all come up with questions. This is one to ask about international opportunities or if they offer sponsorship. I know on the entry level and sometimes internship level, some US-based employers don't have international opportunities, nor do they offer sponsorship. So that's going to be really important for you to just be upfront that you're not US-based and that you're interested in their company, but you just want to know if their company is offered in either your country or another country where sponsorship sometimes may be easier to obtain. So that's a really, really vital question to ask, but also some of that information may be available online. So that could be key in doing your research first. But keep that in mind as you visit employers. Now, not all of them are going to have international opportunities to open to sponsorship, and that's sort of the unfortunate side of some of these expos. And last thing I'll really say about conference navigation is to keep an open mind, and whether that is sessions or the expo, visit booths or attend sessions that are not in your field of study, and organizations and brands that you're not familiar with. A lot of times, particularly at these expos, people want to go to Google immediately and Facebook and Microsoft, but there are other organizations there where you can probably get the same experience, or in some cases better experiences, but you've just never heard of them or not familiar with those name brands. So that's why it's really important to do your research, because not all of the things you're going to be familiar with, but definitely keep an open mind, because they may have positions or even volunteer opportunities or ways to engage that you may not be familiar with. So with that being said, I know I talked a lot, but I really want to provide you all an opportunity to ask some questions and comments, because we still have about 20 minutes left. We should have only had 10 minutes left, but you all were a little quiet on some of the engagement pieces. But now is your time to pick my brain. Again, I've been a fellow for over 10 years, as well as been working with college students in their careers for over 10 years. So this is a great opportunity to pick my brain about anything you have, conference related or career related. I'm open to those questions and also open to some feedback if you have it.
Ralph, I have a question.
Sure.
So for the fellows to make the best impression, what would you recommend for attire for this particular conference?
Yeah, attire is always tricky because you definitely don't want to be overdressed, but you also don't want to be too underdressed. So for the conference itself, I think casual is fine. And when I mean by casual, I would stay away from shorts. A nice pair of jeans, a polo shirt, or a nice t-shirt, clothes, shoes, not necessarily sandals, I think are all going to be important. For the expo, you may want to business casual, But again, from what I've noticed at the conference and looking at some of the pictures, it seems to be a relatively casual conference. But in the idea, particularly for those of you who are looking for internships and jobs, you want to make that best impression. So I wouldn't go. I would keep it business casual. So maybe a nice pair of slacks, a shirt similar to this one with a collar on it for the expo and some of the sessions. But jeans and a nice pair of shirt with this particular conference are fine from what I've noticed. Now, there may be like other receptions that are happening and dinners that are going to happen throughout the conference. So make sure you bring business attire, like a nice professional suit, for men and women. Just I would say for any college student, having a suit readily available is going to be important. So I would bring that in case you go there and you notice that my advice is wrong and that people are definitely wearing suits and you need one. So just have it ready. But I did take a look at some of the pictures from the conference. One of the reasons I didn't cover attire because from the pictures I noticed that it was pretty casual. So yeah, but just keep your casual in a professional way. Like it's casual Friday in my office and I have on jeans with this type of shirt and it's tucked in, but I still have on like loafers and not sneakers. So that type of way, it would be my recommendation.
I'd like to echo Ralph on that. And just to play it safe, business casual is usually safe for most environments where you don't look too dressed up and you don't look too casual. So what I'll do for you all is I'll include a graphic for what business casual looks like into the brochures for the Net Impact conference or for the GCC in general, just so you all have a good idea of what that looks like.
Definitely. What other questions do you all have? This is really important to have, remember I said in the presentation, particularly for employers, to have questions ready. To just be prepared to be there. So, we still have time. So I know you all are, hopefully you're thinking, but having questions is going to be a big piece on how to impress employers that you've done your research.
I have a question about the sessions that were, are those mandatory for all fellows or are they more like suggested? And if mandatory, are we supposed to fill in those 2 sessions in the Net Impact session survey that was sent to us by Net Impact conference organizer?
I'm glad that you all received the survey. So those are the 2 most recommended. They fall in line with the MF mission and brand, and they're also ones that we think would be of benefit to all of you. So it's not been confirmed that it's mandatory, but I would strongly, strongly suggest that you all attend them.
Okay, thank you. Because we were initially confused about whether to fill in the survey because we weren't clear if Melton had a plan for us when we got there. So I'm glad that's cleared up now. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Are there anyone with questions, comments, potential concerns, anything?
Okay, I see someone did ask, do we need to drop off our CVs to employers, or we need to wait for them to ask for it? I would always wait for them to, don't wait for them to ask for it. You can also ask them if they're taking the resumes or CVs as well. I think when we do our, say for example, when I'm at an expo, we don't take resumes at sessions. I may look at a student and they may have it. I may just slowly glance at it and be like, okay, yeah, you'd be a great fit. Here's your CV back. Please go online to apply. So you can ask them, or you could just take it out, have them review it and see what they do with it. You don't have to necessarily wait for them to ask for it, but just having it readily available kind of already sets you apart.
How many copies would be suggested to have of your CV or resume at the expo?
For an expo of this size, I would probably have about 20 copies, just because it's a from what I've noticed, seems like a pretty large expo, but generally I keep around 8 on me, and you won't need 20, honestly, probably, because again, you're only going to be giving them to folks that you're interested in or working with. But another reason to have 20 is because not every employer there is going to be at the expo. You're going to be meeting folks at the sessions. You're going to be meeting folks at the networking events who you can have your resume at. I have been at dinner at a conference, and folks I've talked to, and they've asked for my resume after dinner because they have an opportunity that's coming down the pipeline. So just at these things, don't think of the expo as the only opportunity to share your CV or resume. There will be, those networking sessions also provide that space to do that. So I would just, if you have a backpack or that binder on you at all times during the conference, just have it and be ready, as well as, your business cards.
So we have another question. Should the CV be more career oriented or social service oriented? Great
question. That's determined on what your goal is for attending the expo or going to the session. So if your goal is to really find, if it's a more social service organizations that you're interested in, and that's been the most of your experience, and you want that to continue to be your experience, I would focus in that direction. But if you know that your goal is to get a job and find a career, then I would focus it in that area. So that is up to you. I think both can be really effective. I would recommend, also what I forgot to mention, for a college student or recent grad, I would recommend no more than 1 page. 2 pages is still stretching it. If you have to do 2 pages, if you have that much experience, go for it, but definitely no more than 2. But 1 page should really be succinct and your experiences. And that's also going to depend on if you have a CV or resume. But for a lot of US-based employers, for college students at entry level, they're looking for 1 solid page. As we work with, again, I mentioned over 40 employers, all of them ask for 1 page and require 1 page. So it can be tough. So if you're more than 1 page now, try to work to bring that down. I know it can be hard. I know when I switched fields, I had to bring mine down from 5 pages down to 2. So it could be tough, but just work at it and really focus on that. And I just saw another comment here that, and that's good to know because I didn't get the confirmation information, but that international students are welcome, and many of the companies invited may have international opportunities available for you. So that is good to know. So thank you to Alafia for sharing that information if folks aren't reading the comment session. So the next question, will we have a good number of opportunities to collaborate remotely with people we meet from different organizations? Yes. And I think that collaboration can be, project-based, either that be a Melton project that you want to work on, you can collaborate remotely with people that you meet, or it could be an individual project that you like to work on. Just for example, a few years ago, I went to a convening WISE with Melton, which is the World Innovation Summit of Education, and in Doha. and I met a few folks from different organizations there. And part of my work at the time was I was working in Birmingham, Alabama, which in the U.S. is really what is our home base for civil rights. And I met some folks from South Africa who had developed a documentary on apartheid there. And we were able to then, stay connected with them via email and LinkedIn. And we were able to get a copy of the documentary to show at our university in Birmingham. So there's going to be plenty of ways just that you can collaborate with people. So within the Melton Foundation or within other organizations that you want to participate in. So really think critically about how you want to collaborate. But definitely, I think that is up to you and how you take advantage of the relationships that you meet. But follow-up is going to be essential. So you're going to be exchanging cards, sharing your resume, receiving cards. Take those business cards. One of the tips that I always give and I always use is when I get a business card, I write on the back of it where I met that particular person and what we talked about. So when you do that, when you send that follow-up email or that follow-up LinkedIn message, you can set them a reminder like, hi, this is Raphael. We met at Net Impact at the Echoing Green session. I really enjoyed meeting you. And when you mentioned this, I laughed or whatever happened. Just set a reminder for yourself on the back of that business card about what you talked about. But also do it discreetly. Like, don't receive the business card and immediately while they're still standing there, begin to write on the back what happened. Wait until the conversation is over or later in the day. If you can remember, just step to the side and write that down on the back of that card. But that's a tip that will really help you remember the folks you met, and also when you need to follow up with them, just notes on what you can mention when you send that follow-up message.
I'd also like to echo that again, that for folks that are maybe not particularly interested in the career aspect of it, but making those connections for any sort of local projects that you want to start or things that or relationships that you want to maintain and pass along. There are so many opportunities with a conference size of 2,500 people. You never know who you're going to come into contact with. And then if you're utilizing your elevator pitch, if you know what your goals are, it'll help you to better navigate and to make those sort of connections and relationships that, like Ralph said, casual conversation, it connected over the idea of civil rights, and then something came out of that. And so just keeping that in mind, that it may not be career oriented, but it might be something that you can follow up for local projects.
Definitely. But all those things, to Lafia's point, can be used for career. Keep in mind, because you always, as I tell people, I am always job searching. I hope, and I'm at work right now, so hopefully they didn't hear that. But but I am always job searching. Not necessarily like I need to move, but always keeping an open mind about opportunities. And so some of these connections, while they can be project-based, can lead you to directions in other ways. And as I mentioned, that conference that Winthrop and I went to, that convening that we went to at the UN, after that convening, someone came up to me and asked me if I was happy in my job and that they had an opportunity open that they should apply for. And Winthrop can tell you the story too. He was like, definitely apply. And I was like, I just started. I'm not ready to move. But I stayed in contact with them. And that was the folks, and to be transparent, that was the folks from Echoing Green. So I stayed in contact with them. And now actually, my involvement with Echo Greens, I actually serve as one of their fellowship coaches. So once they select all of their fellows, they bring them to New York City for a convening and they have them pitch. And they have folks that come and provide them with feedback on their pitches, and also just simply have lunch with them and keep in contact with them. So annually, I go to New York for the past 3 summers and serve as a coach for their fellows' pitches. So again, while I didn't take that job with them, that provided another professional development experience for me. Even though I wasn't interested in applying for the job, I still stay connected. So you never know what can come out of those opportunities. And then again, all these convenings I'm mentioning have all been through the Melton Foundation. So that's why I think it's so important that you all have your Melton Foundation elevator pitch ready to go, because you can really talk about the great things that are happening within the foundation and how you work with those. And that can really not only help you in your career, but help you with some of the social service projects that you may be interested in. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, again, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as I share a lot of like recruiting tips every once in a while, and also connected with a lot of recruiters there. So feel free to send me a message. I'll just be sending Alafia the elevator pitch opportunities, as well as that article from the Harvard Business Review I mentioned, as well as some conversation starter tips, so that you all have all those 3 things in your wheelhouse. Good luck at Net Impact. I really wish I could be there with you all, but I'm pretty sure I'll be following the hashtag and hopefully see some of you all posting about what you're doing. Also hashtag GCC, so that may be easier for me to search. But again, I'm always here if anyone has any questions. So hit me up via Facebook or LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your career or resume related questions.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much for taking time out to really put this presentation together and give this knowledge to the fellows. So let's send Ralph off with a warm goodbye. Everyone unmute yourself and say goodbye.
Everyone.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.